Have you ever heard of Dandara, the Afro-Brazilian warrior who was a leader in the fight against slavery? Or of Maria Quitéria, the Brazilian Joan of Arc? If you haven't, you're not alone. Like her, so many incredible women in Brazilian history have been erased from the historical narrative for centuries, whether they were soldiers, artists, or writers. Luckily, though, that has been changing, thanks to the work of Brazilian historians, but also the work of activists. Still, many of these women are largely unknown outside of Brazil, and much of the scholarship about them exists only in Portuguese, which is really a shame. So, in this video, I thought I would introduce you to some of them. I chose one woman per century since the 16th century and the start of the Portuguese colonization to the 20th. It was very, very difficult to narrow the list down, but here it is. 5 women who changed Brazilian history. Hello, lovely history fans. I'm Dr. Julia Martins and I'm a historian of gender and medicine. I'm also Brazilian. I was born and raised in Brazil, and that's where I did my undergraduate degree in history before moving abroad to continue my studies. I recently came back from Brazil from visiting my family, and it occurred to me that I hadn't yet made a video about Brazilian history on this channel. So here are some of my favorite women from Brazilian history, who I think everyone really should know about. Oh, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel where I talk about all things history. If you enjoy this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing to the channel. I also have a Patreon, so if you'd like to support my work and help me keep on making history videos, that would be great. So let's dive into 5 incredible women from Brazilian history. Catarina Paraguaçu, also known as Catarina of Brazil, was born in what today is Bahia, the daughter of the chief of the Tupinambá tribe, Taparica. Her story has been mythologized pretty much from the start, and so we have to read primary sources with a grain of salt. But, to sum it up, her life changed when her father promised her as a wife to a Portuguese sailor who had survived a shipwreck, Diogo Álvares Correia, also known as Caramuru. I mean, talk about an unexpected match, right? So you have shipwreck survivor marries the tribal chief's daughter. Sounds like the plot of an epic historical novel or poem, doesn't it? And indeed, an epic poem was written about this, and it became a foundational story in our history. So, in 1528, the couple sailed to France, where Catarina was baptized. I mean, she wasn't called Catarina before that, right? And she was probably named Catarina either after the Queen of Portugal or the Queen of France, who both shared this name at the time. And then she converted, of course, to Catholicism. The couple got married in São Malo and had 4 children together. Just imagine the culture shock from the shores of Bahia to the streets of São Malo. Catarina's journey was nothing short of, a blockbuster movie script. Catarina, Caramuru, and their children are usually referred to as the first Brazilian Christian family. But their marriage is also a foundational myth in our national identity and the idea of the sort of harmonic coexistence and integration of different peoples. Catarina was praised for speaking Portuguese exceptionally well, which she learned, and I quote, from a Portuguese slave, according to contemporary sources. We don't know anything about this person, though. But she was also praised for her beauty, and even though she was an indigenous woman, she was described as pale as snow. So you can already see the racism and the racial tensions that existed from the beginning in Brazil. It's said that, together with her husband, Caramuru, she helped to start the construction of the city of Salvador, Brazil's first capital city. Contemporary accounts by Portuguese writers praise her in helping the Portuguese to dominate indigenous peoples, so it's a dubious legacy. More than that, though, she was also known for her dreams and her visions. She was said to dream of starving castaways found on the shore, including a woman carrying a baby, who was interpreted by those around her to be the Virgin Mary. Her husband believed her visions, and so he ordered the beaches to be searched for castaways, and many people were indeed found, which is perhaps, it's not surprising in the sense that this was a time in which many ships from Europe were arriving on the shores of Brazil. In another of these visions, the same woman asked Catarina to build her a house, and legend has it that a statue of the Virgin Mary carrying the baby Jesus was discovered soon afterwards. And, side note, you can still see this miraculous statue at the Igreja da Graça in Salvador. In Catarina's case, history is very much mixed with legend. for better or for worse, and primary sources get sometimes obscured by literary retellings of the story. We do know, however, that when Catarina died in 1583, she left all of her possessions to the Benedictine order. Her remains are still in the same church where the Virgin Mary statue that I mentioned earlier is in Salvador. Today, Catarina Paraguaçu is known as the Mother of Brazil, as a historical and mythical ancestor who was key in the foundation of Brazil. It's hard to overstate just how central Brazil was in the slave trade between the 16th and the 19th centuries. It's estimated that nearly 5 million people from Africa have been forcibly taken to Brazil to work as slaves. Of course, Black people fought against slavery pretty much from the beginning. The Quilombo dos Palmares is perhaps the best example. Quilombos were settlements. They were communities of people who had fled slavery. And Palmares was situated in the area of Pernambuco, in the northeast of Brazil, and it existed from around 1605 to 1694. But Quilombo dos Palmares wasn't just a settlement. It was a beacon of hope and resistance. Imagine creating a whole community out of the sheer will to be free. It's quite the legacy, isn't it? Unfortunately for historians, though, there aren't many primary sources about Dandara's life. We don't really know when or where she was born. What we do know is that she joined the community as a young girl, and eventually she became the partner of its last leader, or king, Zumbi dos Palmares, and they had 3 children together. She was an active part of the resistance against slavery. Not only was she a warrior who fought in multiple battles, but she knew capoeira, an Afro-Brazilian martial art which was created and practiced by enslaved people to the sound of music, to make it seem closer to sort of like a dance or a game. She would also hunt and help grow vegetables for the community. But besides that, she would also participate in discussions about strategy. And she was completely against negotiating with the government, mainly because none of the deals proposed to the quilombolas involved abolishing slavery altogether. Even if the Portuguese offered freedom to those in the community, the community would have to agree not to protect any new people who might have fled their enslavement. It's said that Dandara believed, rightly so, that just wasn't good enough. So fighting, farming, strategizing, Dandara did it all. But arguably, it was her unflinching commitment to freedom and fighting oppression that is the most remarkable thing about her. Sadly, when she was captured in 1694, it's said that she decided to take her own life rather than returning to the life of a slave. Today, she's considered a hero, a symbol of the fight for the freedom of Afro-Brazilians, along with Zumbi dos Palmares. We got to our Brazilian Joan of Arc, as it were, but with a happier ending, I promise. And honestly, if her story doesn't scream like movie adaptation waiting to happen, I don't know what does. So Maria Quitéria was born in a farm in Bahia, and at 10 years old, her mother died, leaving Maria Quitéria responsible for helping her father raise her siblings, not to mention taking care of the house. She didn't attend school, although she loved hunting, horse riding, and learning about firearms. So when the fight for independence from Portugal broke out, most able-bodied men considered old enough were called to fight, and Maria Quitéria wanted to join them. Of course, her father wouldn't let her enlist and join the Prince Regent's regiment, so she ran away from home in 1822, and she went to ask for her half-sister's help. Together, the two of them transformed Maria Quitéria. They cut off her hair and dressed her as a man, so that Maria Quitéria could join the artillery regiment of the army as a volunteer. So big shout out to sibling solidarity here, because, helping Maria disguise herself and join the army, that's what I call family goals. But anyway, side note, so Maria Quitéria borrowed her brother-in-law's clothes, and she adopted his name, José Cordeiro de Medeiros. I just love this idea of the couple supporting Maria Quitéria in her bravery and defiance of gender roles. Now that I think about her, though, I think we should call her the Brazilian Mulan rather than Joan of Arc. I wonder who I have to talk to about that. Anyway, so Maria Quitéria's father soon found out about what she had done, predictably, and he wasn't happy. But an army officer who praised her discipline, her skill, he supported Maria Quitéria in remaining in the army. but her father did manage to have her transferred from the artillery to the infantry regiment, as he believed a rifle to be more appropriate for his daughter than, dealing with cannons. Which, sure. Anyway, Maria Quitéria started using her real name, and as the secret was out, she added a skirt to her uniform, singling her out as a female soldier. Now, that's what I call style. It's very cool. Anyway, she was the first woman in Brazil to join the army and to fight in a war. She was a hero of the Independence War, fighting in several battles against the Portuguese who wouldn't accept Brazil's independence, such as the defense of the Maria Island, the Paraguaçu Bay, Itapuã, and Pituba. She received the Ordem Imperial do Cruzeiro from the Prince Regent turned Emperor Dom Pedro I. From disguising herself as a man to join the independence fight to becoming a celebrated hero, her story is pure defiance and bravery. And contrary to Joan of Arc, Maria Quitéria had a happy ending. After the war, forgiven by her father, she married a sort of old flame, a farm laborer, and they had a daughter. She led a peaceful, if anonymous, life from then on. Maria Quitéria died in Salvador, where she is buried, and today she is remembered as a brave and determined woman and as a hero in the fight for independence. Can you imagine composing over 2,000 pieces of music? Francisca Edviges Neves Gonzaga, better known as Chiquinha Gonzaga, did just that. She was the daughter of a high-ranking military man and a mixed-race woman whose mother had been freed from slavery. As you can imagine, her father's aristocratic family opposed this union, and the couple only married officially when Chiquinha was 12 years old. Still, she received a good education from a young age, and she was fascinated by music. She taught herself how to play the piano, and soon she was composing her own music. Her father forced her into marriage when she was just 16 years old, with a man 8 years older than her. Sadly, her husband was violent and abusive. Besides that, he was against her pursuing a career of any sort in music, which is something she was so passionate about. And so after having 3 children together, Chiquinha left him when she was 23 years old. Her family wouldn't take her back though, and she had to give up her children. Soon after leaving her husband, Chiquinha married once more, and she had a daughter, but that relationship didn't last either. And she also lost contact with that daughter. People were talking about her, not only because of the scandal all of this caused, but also because of her music. She knew how to give a sort of Brazilian touch to European music. She mixed classical with popular music, so she combined the waltz, the polka, and the mazurka with choro, machixe, and lundu. She was happy to combine orchestra instruments with acoustic guitars, for instance. Plus, she created many marchinhas, carnival music that we still listen to today in Brazil. There's so much to admire in Chiquinha. Although she was advised to publish her works under a male name, a male pseudonym, she refused to do so. She was known to have a strong personality, and I think it shows. Still, she went on to travel around the country, teaching piano, creating beautiful music, and making her own living. Chiquinha shocked society with her love affairs, which were sometimes with much younger men, and also her views about women. She was a kind of proto-feminist in terms of sexual freedom and women's rights. Besides that, she campaigned for the end of the monarchy and for the abolition of slavery. Chiquinha was a real trailblazer, and yes, I hate buzzwords like this and I try to avoid them, but she really was. She defied gender roles in a very sexist society. She was the first woman to ever conduct an orchestra in Brazil in 1884 with one of her operettas, and she was highly successful in her day, writing hit after hit, as it were. Today, she's remembered as one of the most important figures in Brazilian music, and in 2012, her birthday date, 17th of October, was declared National Day of Popular Brazilian Music, which I find very, very cool. And I highly recommend you look up her music online. Even if you can't understand the lyrics, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. It would be pretty much impossible to talk about modernist art in Brazil without including Tarsila do Amaral. Born to a wealthy family of coffee growers from São Paulo, Tarsila was sent to study in Barcelona as a teenager. She went back to Brazil, got married, and had a child, following very much what was expected of a young woman like herself to do. But she was anything but conventional. She left her husband and moved to Paris to immerse herself in the world of art. When she went back to Brazil, her friend and fellow artist Anita Malfatti introduced her to the group that was revolutionizing the very idea of art in Brazil. People like Oswald Andrade and Mario Andrade and Menotti del Picchia. By 1929, she had her first solo exhibition in Rio. Her work was influenced by European trends in art at the time, such as Cubism, incorporating Brazilian influences as well. She married Oswald Andrade, and together with their friend Raul Bopp, she goes full cultural cannibalism with the anthropophagic movement. And if you think that sounds wild, it's because it was. Devouring global influences to redefine Brazilian art. That was the premise. So they founded this anthropophagic movement, which completely changed how art and culture in Brazil were understood. And yes, anthropophagic as in cannibalism. So do let me know in the comments if you would be interested in a video about the anthropophagic movement in Brazilian art, which is a very cool subject. Anyway, art historians usually classify her work in 3 phases: pau-brasil, or Brazil wood, anthropophagic, and lastly, the social phase. She depicted the social change happening with industrialization, as well as Brazilian folklore and popular festivities such as Carnival. She dedicated what is arguably her masterpiece, Abaporu, to her husband and fellow modernist artist, Oswald. This painting, Abaporu, is the most expensive work by a Brazilian artist ever. It's a masterpiece, and it's so iconic it might as well be called, Brazil's Mona Lisa. Gifted to Oswald, and because nothing says I love you like a groundbreaking piece of modern art, this defined her, this work. Tarsila used to say that she wished to be the painter of Brazil, and she also said that she had done it. Who am I to say otherwise? I'm curious to know whether you had ever heard of these women. Most Brazilians have, I'd say, even though we studied them very briefly in school, if at all. But do let me know in the comments. And feel free to drop me any questions you might have. As always, I have included a list of references and recommendations and links in the video description, but unfortunately, almost everything is in Portuguese, although I did manage to find one English translation. If you are interested, though, in Brazilian history and you don't read Portuguese, I definitely recommend checking out this book, which is called Brazil, a Biography, and it's a translation of a book by a cultural historian, I think one of Brazil's coolest historians working currently, Lilia Schwartz. In any case, I hope you enjoyed hearing about these incredible women. I tried to make my list as diverse as I could, but also to keep the video fairly brief. So there are so many interesting people to choose from, and I didn't even include any people who are still alive today, nor did I include my possibly favorite writer ever, Clarice Lispector, an honorary Brazilian of sorts. Anyway, let me know in the comments if I should make a part 2. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Hi, Pancake! I would also be grateful if you would consider joining my Patreon and helping me make more history videos. Thank you. See you next time.